You see that person on Instagram with the Lamborghini, the Rolex, and the penthouse view? They're probably broke. Not kind of broke. Actually, genuinely cannot afford groceries broke. And the math behind how they're pulling this off is both simpler and more disturbing than you think. Here's what's happening right now. Millions of people are scrolling through social media convinced they're the only ones struggling financially, while everyone else is living some luxury lifestyle. But those luxury lifestyles, most of them are rented by the hour, financed at interest rates that would make a loan shark blush, or straight up fabricated. The gap between what people show and what they actually have has never been wider. A recent study found that 78% of luxury car owners are making payments they can barely afford, and 1 in 3 people earning 6 figures are living paycheck to paycheck. The person flexing harder than everyone else is often the one closest to financial collapse. Let's start with the luxury car illusion, because it's the easiest con to spot once you know what you're looking for. That guy rolling up in a brand new Mercedes S-Class, monthly payment is probably around $2,000. His annual insurance? Another $6,000. Maintenance costs on German luxury vehicles run about $3,000 per year, so before he's driven a single mile, he's spending roughly $30,000 annually just to look successful. Now here's where it gets interesting. The average person seeing that car assumes the driver makes at least $300,000 per year. Why? Because conventional wisdom says you shouldn't spend more than 10% of your income on a car. But the reality is that driver might be making $80,000 and spending nearly 40% of his gross income on that vehicle. He's not rich, he's just really committed to the performance. But cars are amateur hour compared to what's happening with real estate flexing. Open Instagram right now and you'll see someone filming content from what looks like their incredible apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the city skyline. Except it's not their apartment. It's an Airbnb they rented for 4 hours at $200. Or it's a friend's place. Or it's the lobby of a luxury building where they don't even live. The short-term rental market has created an entire ecosystem for manufacturing fake wealth. There are people who spend $500 renting a mansion for a day to shoot content, then go home to their studio apartment. The math works because that content generates followers, and those followers can eventually be monetized. It's an investment in the illusion. Private jets represent the pinnacle of this phenomenon. You know how much it actually costs to charter a private jet? About $4,000 to $8,000 per flight hour depending on the aircraft. A quick trip from LA to Vegas? Roughly $10,000. Sounds expensive until you realize there are companies that let you take photos inside parked private jets for $300 per hour. Those Instagram stories of people jetting off to Miami? There's a decent chance that plane never left the ground. They paid for photo access, shot 20 different poses, and scheduled those posts throughout the month to create the impression of a lifestyle that doesn't exist. The entire experience cost less than a nice dinner. Now let's talk about designer everything. The handbags, the shoes, the clothes with logos bigger than the actual garment. The resale market for luxury goods has exploded specifically because people want to flash designer items without designer budgets. Someone buys a Gucci bag, uses it for content for 3 months, then sells it at a 30% loss. That 30% becomes the rental fee for maintaining appearances. Therefore, an entire secondary economy has emerged. Luxury consignment stores, rental services for designer goods, and even companies that let you borrow jewelry for special occasions. You can look like you spent $50,000 on accessories while actually spending $500 on rentals. But here's what makes this whole system sustainable: credit. Enormous amounts of credit that people are using to bridge the gap between their real financial situation and their projected image. The average credit card debt in America is over $6,000 per person. For millennials and Gen Z, it's significantly higher. A substantial portion of that debt is directly funding lifestyle presentation. Buy now, pay later services have accelerated this trend dramatically. You can purchase a $3,000 outfit, wear it for content, and structure the payments over 6 months. By the time you're done paying for it, you've already moved on to the next thing you're pretending you can afford. The debt compounds while the content evaporates. Someone making $70,000 per year can easily create the visual impression of making $300,000 through strategic use of financing, rentals, and selective presentation. They show the champagne brunch but not the ramen dinner. They show the designer shopping bag but not the credit card statement. They show the penthouse party but not the fact they were only invited, they don't live there. Social media has turned financial fraud into a spectator sport where the fraud isn't even illegal. Nobody's breaking laws. They're just weaponizing debt and rental markets to manufacture a reality that benefits them. And it works because humans are visual creatures who make assumptions based on surface-level observations. You see someone in a Rolex, and your brain automatically calculates net worth. Except that Rolex might be financed over 3 years at 18% interest, or it's a really good fake purchased overseas for $200, or it's borrowed from a friend for a special event. The watch is real in the photo, but the wealth it suggests is completely fabricated. The restaurant photos are particularly telling. High-end restaurants with expensive entrees and $50 cocktails. The assumption is that someone eating there regularly must have serious money, but scroll through enough of these accounts and you'll notice something. It's always the same 2 or 3 restaurants. They're not actually living that lifestyle daily. They're visiting once, taking 40 photos, and spacing them out over weeks. Here's what this creates. A feedback loop where everyone is performing wealth for everyone else, and everyone believes everyone else's performance except their own. You know your own financial struggles are real. You assume everyone else's projected success is equally real. Therefore, you feel uniquely inadequate when actually you're seeing a carefully curated highlight reel that's often financed with money they don't have. The psychological damage this causes is measurable. Studies show that social media usage correlates directly with financial anxiety and overspending. People see these projections of wealth and feel pressure to keep up, so they start their own performance. They finance things they can't afford to maintain an image that benefits nobody. The debt isn't even treated like debt anymore. It's treated like a tool for image construction. There's an entire industry built around teaching people how to leverage credit to look wealthier than they are. Finance influencers who explain how to maximize credit limits specifically for lifestyle presentation. YouTube videos titled How to Look Rich on a Budget, with millions of views teaching people to weaponize store credit cards and payment plans. What's particularly insidious is how this affects younger people who grew up with social media as their primary reality. They never experienced a world where what you saw was generally what was real. For them, performance has always been the baseline. They assume everyone is curating and optimizing, so they don't even question whether they should participate. It's just what you do. I've watched 20-somethings stress about getting the right background for their apartment photos, not because they care about interior design, but because bare walls signal financial struggle. The apartment itself could be a studio they're splitting with 2 roommates, but if the corner they photograph looks expensive, that's mission accomplished. The rest of the space doesn't matter because it won't appear online. Here's where the math gets genuinely disturbing. The average person spends about 2.5 hours daily on social media. In that time, they're exposed to hundreds of images of projected wealth. Each image triggers a micro-comparison. Their brain is constantly calculating where they stand relative to what they're seeing. Even when they consciously know it's curated, the subconscious keeps score. This creates what psychologists call reference anxiety. Your reference points for normal keep getting distorted upward. What should feel like success starts feeling like failure because you're comparing your reality to everyone else's fiction. Someone making $70,000 a year should feel pretty good about their situation. That's above median income in most cities. But when their feed is full of people seemingly living on $300,000, that 70 suddenly feels inadequate. The comparison isn't even accurate because you're comparing your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel. You know your own financial struggles intimately. You see every declined transaction, every budget adjustment, every month where money gets tight. But you only see other people's wins. Their luxury hotel lobby photo, not their credit card statement. Their designer shopping bag, not their overdraft fee. What makes this especially toxic is that the people projecting the hardest are often the most financially unstable. There's an inverse relationship between actual wealth and the need to display wealth. People with real money don't typically feel compelled to prove it constantly. They're secure enough that they don't need external validation. It's the people who are insecure about their financial position who feel the strongest urge to project. Think about legitimately wealthy individuals you've encountered or heard about. Many of them dress normally, drive reasonable cars, and don't broadcast their net worth. Mark Zuckerberg wears the same gray t-shirt constantly. Warren Buffett still lives in the house he bought in the 1950s. They have nothing to prove because their wealth isn't tied to other people's perception. But someone with $30,000 in credit card debt and a negative net worth, they need you to think they're successful. Their entire self-worth might be wrapped up in maintaining that image, so they'll finance a luxury car they can't afford, rent designer clothes for photos, and structure their entire life around appearing wealthy to strangers on the internet. The rental economy has made this exponentially easier. You can rent almost anything now: cars, watches, jewelry, even houses for photo shoots. There are services that let you rent a mansion for 2 hours, specifically for social media content. You show up, take 50 photos in different outfits and locations, then leave. For the next 6 months, you can post images that suggest you live there. Luxury car rentals by the day let you photograph yourself with a different exotic car every week. To an outside observer, it looks like you own a collection worth millions. The reality might be you're spending $300 per rental and eating the cost to maintain your image. The math doesn't work, but the optics do. Clothing rental services have exploded specifically because of this dynamic. Rent the Runway and similar companies let you wear designer clothes for a fraction of purchase price. You can wear a $3,000 dress, post photos, return it, and repeat. Your followers see designer fashion constantly, never realizing it's the same strategy someone might use for a costume. What's particularly clever about modern wealth projection is the layering. Nobody does just one thing. They combine rentals with financing, with strategic photography, with selective disclosure. Each element is plausible on its own. Together, they create a comprehensive illusion that's almost impossible to detect unless you know what to look for. The financial services industry has caught on and started enabling this explicitly. Credit cards market themselves based on the status they signal, not their actual benefits. The metal card that makes a satisfying sound when you set it down. The exclusive color that signals premium membership. These features have nothing to do with the card's function. They exist purely for social signaling. Buy now, pay later services advertise using imagery of luxury goods and experiences. The message is clear. Don't let your current bank balance limit your lifestyle presentation. Buy what you need to look successful now. Worry about payment later. The debt is abstract and future. The image boost is concrete and immediate. Even savings apps have started gamifying wealth projection, apps that round up purchases and invest the difference market themselves around the idea of building wealth that you can eventually showcase. The actual returns are minimal, but the psychological framing is about achieving visible success. This entire ecosystem exists because we've collectively agreed that appearance matters more than reality. Or more accurately, we've created a system where appearance generates real opportunities, making the investment in illusion economically rational even when it's financially destructive. Someone who looks wealthy gets treated better. They get approved for better apartments, receive superior customer service, and get taken more seriously in professional contexts. The projection creates real advantages that can theoretically justify the cost of maintaining it. You're not just buying an image, you're buying access to opportunities that image unlocks. Except for most people, the math still doesn't work. The cost of projection exceeds the benefit it generates. They're spending money they don't have to impress people who don't matter, creating debt that will limit their actual financial progress for years. But they can't stop because everyone else is doing it, and falling behind in the projection game feels like falling behind in life itself. The cycle becomes self-reinforcing in ways most people never consciously recognize. You project wealth to gain opportunities. Those opportunities require maintaining the projection to capitalize on them. So you invest more in appearance, which creates pressure to leverage that appearance into bigger opportunities, which demands an even more expensive projection. It's a treadmill that speeds up the longer you stay on it. Consider what happens when someone gets promoted or lands a higher-paying job partly because of their cultivated image. Their first instinct isn't to stop projecting and start saving. It's to upgrade their projection to match their new status. The salary increase gets absorbed entirely by lifestyle inflation. They move to a better apartment, buy better clothes, eat at nicer restaurants. Their expenses rise in lockstep with their income, sometimes faster. The cruel mathematics of this system is that the people who need wealth projection least are the ones who can actually afford it. Someone with genuine wealth can easily maintain appearances because they're not financing it with debt or stretching their budget. The person barely scraping by financially is the one paying premium prices to rent the illusion. What makes this particularly insidious is how it corrupts your relationship with money at a fundamental level. You stop thinking of purchases in terms of their actual value or utility. Every buying decision becomes about what it signals to others. That restaurant isn't chosen because the food is exceptional. It's chosen because being seen there communicates something about your status. The vacation destination isn't selected based on what you'd enjoy most. It's selected based on how it will look in photos. This extends beyond material goods into experiences and even relationships. People choose friends partly based on how those friendships appear to others. They attend events they don't enjoy because being there signals belonging to a certain group. They pursue career opportunities not because the work is meaningful, but because the title sounds impressive. The psychological toll of maintaining this facade is rarely discussed, but absolutely crushing. You're constantly performing, constantly aware of how you're being perceived, constantly anxious about whether someone will discover the gap between your projection and your reality. That anxiety creates stress that affects your health, your relationships, your ability to focus on actual productive work. There's also the opportunity cost that nobody calculates. Every dollar spent on projection is a dollar not invested in actually building wealth. Compound interest works both ways. The money you spend on maintaining appearances could have been generating returns that eventually make the appearances unnecessary. Instead, it's gone forever, and you're further from real financial security than when you started. The path out of this trap requires something most people find almost impossible: willingness to look less successful than you are. This goes against every instinct we've developed in a status-driven culture. It means driving a modest car when you could afford better. It means living in a normal neighborhood when you could stretch for something impressive. It means saying no to social opportunities that would enhance your image but drain your resources. What's fascinating is that the people who escape this cycle often report an overwhelming sense of relief. The constant performance becomes exhausting. Living authentically, even if it means appearing less successful, removes a psychological burden most people don't realize they're carrying until it's gone. But very few people make that choice voluntarily. Most either continue the performance until something breaks, a job loss, a health crisis, a relationship collapse, or they slowly escalate until the debt becomes unsustainable and forces a reckoning they've been avoiding. The financial industry loves this dynamic because it creates perpetual customers. Someone trying to project wealth will always need the next loan, the next credit limit increase, the next financing option. They're profitable precisely because they're financially unstable. A person with actual wealth doesn't need to borrow money for lifestyle expenses. Social media platforms benefit too. The more people invest in their online image, the more time they spend on the platforms maintaining it. Engagement metrics rise. Ad revenue increases. The entire ecosystem profits from your insecurity and your willingness to pay to mask it. What almost nobody talks about is how this affects society beyond individual finances. When everyone is projecting success they haven't achieved, it creates completely distorted perceptions of normal. Young people see influencers living lavishly and assume that's achievable through ordinary work. They don't see the debt, the sponsors, the strategic deception behind the images. This generates unrealistic expectations that lead to disappointment and financial decisions that compound the problem into the next generation. Parents who can't afford it finance expensive educations because not doing so would signal failure. Students take on crushing debt for universities chosen partly for prestige. The cycle continues. The solution exists but requires collective action nobody seems willing to take. If enough people simultaneously decided to stop performing wealth they don't have, the pressure to maintain appearances would collapse. But that requires coordination and trust that others will also stop, which seems impossible in a competitive, status-driven culture. So instead, we get individual decisions that make rational sense within an irrational system. Each person calculates that maintaining the projection is worth the cost because everyone else is doing it. Stopping unilaterally means falling behind in the status game. The Nash equilibrium is everyone projecting, everyone stressed, everyone financially worse off than they appear. Real wealth, the kind that actually provides security and freedom, comes from the opposite approach. Spend less than you earn. Invest the difference consistently. Ignore what others think of your choices. Compound growth works when you give it time and resources, neither of which is available when you're financing an image. The people who achieve actual financial independence almost universally report that they stopped caring about appearances somewhere along the way. They drove unremarkable cars, lived in modest homes, and let people assume whatever they wanted. Decades later, they had wealth that the projection-focused crowd was still pretending to have. That's the fundamental irony. The fastest path to looking wealthy is to stop trying to look wealthy and focus on actually building wealth instead. But our psychology makes that nearly impossible for most people to accept. We're wired to care what others think. We're vulnerable to social pressure. We want validation now, not financial security decades from now. So the projection continues, the debt accumulates, the stress builds, and everyone keeps pretending everything is fine because admitting otherwise would mean admitting you've been playing a game you were never going to win. The next time you see someone flaunting wealth online, remember this. They're probably one missed payment away from collapse. Not exaggerating. Actually teetering on the edge while you're sitting there feeling inadequate about your stable, debt-free life. You've got a choice here. Keep comparing your reality to their performance art, or recognize the game for what it is and refuse to play. Because here's what nobody's saying out loud. The people winning financially aren't the ones looking the richest. They're the ones sleeping through the night without worrying about credit card bills. That person with the normal car and the paid-off mortgage, they're wealthier than the guy leasing the Porsche, the family taking modest vacations they actually paid for in cash. They're ahead of the couple financing Bali for the Instagram story. Real wealth whispers while fake wealth screams, and the screaming is specifically designed to make you feel like you're falling behind. You're not behind. You're just not performing. And that might be the smartest financial decision you never consciously made. The projection economy runs on your insecurity. Starve it. Build actual wealth instead of renting the appearance of it. Let everyone else exhaust themselves maintaining illusions while you stack real money that actually compounds. 20 years from now, the person who looked broke today will be genuinely wealthy. The person who looked wealthy today will still be pretending. Choose which one you want to be, then act accordingly. The facade crumbles eventually. Assets don't.